I mean, it's more difficult to advocate the Republican cause when you have a queen who is generally regarded, even if inaccurately regarded, as having been, pretty flawless in a long reign. And she's not flawless, but she's not done badly. It could have been a lot worse. It might be a lot easier to advocate the Republican cause if you have a king who's generally regarded as a bit of a twat, not very good at his job, etc. Now, personally, I'd love it if we could force Charles to advocate, but I wouldn't love it if the consequence was that this boy who's getting married tomorrow becomes a very popular kind of Diana-soaked blonde bombshell. Do you know what I mean? So tactically, it's a difficult one.
Do you think maybe non-Republicans would have a legitimate case in application? Or do you think?
Yeah, I do actually. I mean, I do. I mean, the most ardent royalists I've ever met are my two grandmothers, and neither of my grandmothers likes Charles at all. They both think that he should not be king. So I mean, there are a lot of royalists out there, especially the older generation, who are of the view that Charles should not be king. But then, of course, if you start picking and choosing who your king or queen is, that's the whole point of monarchy gone. Right? I mean, the whole point of monarchy is you don't get to choose, right? You're either born into it or you're not. And if you get to choose, that isn't a hereditary principle anymore.
Any thoughts on this proposed change to allow the firstborn child of either gender to succeed rather than merely the firstborn male?
What have I thought? I don't have any thoughts on that. I mean, I couldn't care less. It's a sideshow. Well, it's interesting though how difficult it is to get that, because that rule, as I understand it, that rule has to be accepted for it to come into force. It has to be accepted by all 37 monarchies in the British Commonwealth. All 37 states that the Queen is head of state of. Whatever, maybe I have the numbers wrong. And there are some states in the British Commonwealth that are not quite so free of sexism as, of course, the British state is, with its absolutely non-sexist Prime Minister.
In that case, do you think that the tension over this issue could lead to division within the Commonwealth?
No. It's not a big enough issue. I don't think. No.
Yeah, I've got two more questions. The first is, one of the reasons why I'm against the monarchy is because I think the institution is bad for the royals themselves as individuals. And I've heard you say in the past that the monarchy is in many ways deprived of certain human rights and that there's a legal aspect to that. So
yes, true.
If you could talk a bit about that. And secondly, the crown estate, as I understand it, that's on loan to the treasury from the monarch. So what would happen if we became a republic? Would they reclaim that for themselves and all the revenue that generates?
Okay, so the first question first. I mean, yeah, there is this argument that's been put out by a few commentators that the way in which the rules that we have pertaining to the monarchy deprive the monarchy of certain pretty fundamental human rights, such as the right to free speech, and that why shouldn't Charles, as an individual citizen of the United Kingdom, have the right to speak out about modern architecture or about holistic medicine or about GM crops? We will have that right. Why shouldn't he have that right? As a human being, he should have the right to freedom of expression. And the way in which we kind of want a politically neutered royal family or politically neutered monarchy is contrary to their human rights as individuals. To which my response is, you don't like the rules, you don't have to play by them. You can abdicate. You can leave the royal family. You can say, I'm not going to become king. I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to campaigning for a certain sort of, classical architecture or a certain sort of shape and field or whatever it is you want to do. So that's my view about that. There are all sorts of people that are in positions whereby they can't express themselves freely and politically. Judges, for example. Judges can't engage in political argument. Civil servants can't engage in political argument. Peers are not allowed to vote in general elections. Same with prisoners. I find that amusing. That's not an argument I've ever been particularly sympathetic to, or indeed at all sympathetic to. What was the other issue? The current state, yeah. That's hugely complicated. What the Queen knows in her own capacity as an individual, and what the Crown owns as the representative of the state is not. I mean, it's very difficult to disentangle those two things, and it's inevitable that there would have to be negotiated as part of any kind of Republican settlement a disentanglement of those things. Some parts of the Crown estate were privately purchased. I understand, for example, that Balmoral was privately purchased by Prince Albert for Queen Victoria, and that's owned privately by the royal family. But you know, I mean, the whole when you start thinking about who owns the land and the estate, and you know, you then start thinking, well, you know, it's not just a question of ownership; it's also a question of who's paid for it since it was bought. And you know, one of the aspects of the costs of the royal family, and I'm sure people will talk about this tomorrow, that is never talked about, that is never revealed. It's talked about, but never revealed, is the security bill. So you know, I mean, I would hope that as part of any Republican settlement, there would be a recognition that some of the Crown's private wealth should be paid to the British state in recompense for having kept these buggers safe for 150 years. And what the security bill will be tomorrow is liable to be astronomical. We're paying for it. They're not paying for it. You know, if there had been a security bill at my wedding, I would pay for it.
Say another thing on that as well is the Willie Hamilton's What Might Be Tonight.
Yeah.
Where he picks apart historically how the royals, over hundreds of years, stole everything back that they'd been taken from them
Yeah.
and given to the House of Commons.
Yeah.
Well worth a read.
No, that's absolutely right. I read that years ago because when in 1992, I think it was, John Major, the Prime Minister, announced that the Queen had graciously volunteered to pay tax, and so we all voluntarily and graciously, willingly pay tax. And of course, she doesn't have tax; she pays a little bit of tax. She pays a percentage of tax on some taxes. They still don't pay inheritance tax, which is the big one when you own a fucking country. But I mean, income tax. They don't have an income. It's all capital. Anyway, I was working in London in those days, and there was a professor of tax law.